Hi there, I'm Taylor Spratt, and I'm a content manager on the Cultiveit team. I'm here today with Bob Lesser. Bob is an executive coach, a licensed therapist, a former founder, and the author of a new book, The Peak Performance Formula. So, Bob, we'll jump right into it. What is the peak performance formula?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, and let me share my work and my perspectives. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so over my years of working with and studying high-performing people, I noticed a set of commonalities amongst them, and these were folks that have reached extremely high levels, and were able to do that for over time, able to sustain those high levels over time. And they were what I found was that they were grounded in a sense of purpose, that they had very explicit guiding values, and that they maintained a clear vision of what they wanted to achieve. And I also found that they managed themselves in a very particular way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so those tools and tactics, along with these pillars of purpose, values, and vision, comprise the peak performance formula, and that's what I write about in my book.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. You've worn a lot of hats in your career. How did this impact your insights in developing and thinking about the peak performance formula as you just outlined?
Yeah, so yes, I thank you for highlighting that. I have a colorful resume. I started my career in government. I've worked in criminal justice and education fields. I've lived and worked abroad. I've trained and practiced as a psychotherapist. I founded and led a charter school in the Bronx in New York City. And now I work as an executive coach, mostly with technology startups. So, my training and my background has really allowed me to draw from sort of interdisciplinary fields, psychology, neuroscience, management, Buddhism, and other areas to really inform my thinking about how we can get the most out of ourselves and out of our lives. And I would say, it's also sort of given me a lot of sort of perspectives. I've seen big organizations, I've seen small organizations, I've seen startups, I've seen for-profits, nonprofits. So really to get a good sort of view of how most of us are living our work lives, and being able to sort of see that from a variety of vantage points, which is really sort of helped me. And I'd say lastly, I've really been fortunate in that I've kind of gotten to reinvent myself a number of times professionally, and so I know that it's possible. It takes some work. It's not easy, but it's possible. But I'm convinced that we can really craft the kind of work life that we want. That we have much more control over that than I think that many of us think we do, and we can really find work for ourselves that is purposeful, meaningful, values based, and aligned to our vision of our sort of ourselves. So I've kind of been able to live that firsthand, and that helped convince me that it's possible for other people to find that level of satisfaction and fulfillment in their work.
Yeah, that dynamicism is really inspiring. I think resonates with so many of us. The idea of creating the work and career path that allows us to explore all those different avenues. What best practices in the pursuit of this do you recommend for, especially the moment we're in, returning to work, returning to the office, whether full time or in a hybrid modality?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'd say is, I really encourage organizations I work with to consider what worked well during the past 2 years of the pandemic that is worth keeping. And, I think there were a number of practices that people put in place that they were like, oh, this is actually better than the way we did it before. And so I'd really encourage, everyone to take stock of like what worked, not only organizations, but even individual, professionals to say, what new routines or ways of living or ways of working did I develop new habits that I developed that really worked for me that I want to keep in place because they're good whether it's pandemic or no pandemic. So that'd be number one. But certainly the myth that people couldn't be productive working remotely was finally and completely debunked, which I think is a good thing, because I think for a long time that was standing in the way of people getting the kind of freedom and flexibility that they were looking for. Whether their employers weren't quite sure that it was a good idea to give people that kind of flexibility and allow them to work from home, or people were scared about asking for it. That sort of totally, now it's like on the table, right? Like we can work remotely and we can be productive, probably in some ways more productive than working in the office. While I think flexibility is a good practice, and I think that is definitely something that we should all be striving to kind of bring more of into the workplace. I think there's actually something more than flexibility, which I think what people really want and value more is freedom, and this is the freedom to choose what is best for them individually. So I'd love to see more focus on giving people the freedom to design what is optimal for them in their work life. And I'd like to see employers take a more active role in helping people optimize work for them individually. So this could include experimenting with the 4-day work week, instituting 45-minute meetings instead of 1-hour meetings to ensure time for breaks and that they're adequate. Managers becoming more conscientious about workload expectations that they place on their employees, coordinating, do not disturb work blocks, and doing a better job of making sure that the sort of workplace interruptions are minimized. I just saw a survey of like 2,000 workers where they reported an average of over 31 interruptions throughout the day per day. And this is so inefficient in terms of productivity, and as well as it's just mentally exhausting when you consider the switching costs of getting distracted and then having to go back to what it is you were trying to focus on. So these are some of the things that I would recommend, but it really comes down to sort of the sort of freedom, giving people the freedom to optimize how they work best.
Yeah, that really resonates, the pieces about trust and freedom, the silver linings, coming out of the pandemic. How do you think the high quality time off fits into the peak performance model?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've seen in performance science and athletics over the last 10 to 15 years is an emphasis on recovery practices. So these are practices that have helped elite athletes perform better and longer, extending their careers way beyond what was previously normal or considered possible. So LeBron James playing basketball at an elite level at 37 years old. Tennis players Roger Federer and Serena Williams both at 40, still at top levels. Football quarterback Tom Brady, who retired and then unretired, is 44 years old and still playing, at the top of his game. So the peak performance model carries this concept over into any area of our life that we're striving, where we're really like going after it. And we need to complement intense work periods with just as intense recovery periods. And I think that's where high quality time off fits in. Higher quality work will follow from higher quality time off.
Yeah, and I think it also allows us to enter into this flow state that you were sort of talking about before, and really activate our creativity and our best selves, if you will, when we're able to have that high quality time off. So thank you so much for your time, Bob, and thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be featuring experts and thought leaders on topics of sustainable peak performance, burnout prevention, and the future of work here, so make sure to follow us for more insights.